Hey folks, Colin here from Sumthins Recording, and today I'm going to show you my secret weapon for mixing pro vocals. We're going to be talking about vocal compression today, but before we dive in, if you're ready to go a little bit deeper into the vocal mixing process and perfect your EQ strategy, then I have just the thing for you. It is my ultimate guide to vocal EQ. It's a simple PDF that will guide you through EQing your vocals step by step to help you get polished and professional sounding vocal mixes without any more of the guesswork. It is completely free and you can download the guide using the link below in the video description. Now let's jump in here and start talking about compressing vocals. As you've probably guessed, my secret weapon for pro vocal mixes is compression, or the compressor that I use on my vocals. Before we jump into the actual compressor, let me play you the vocal inside the finished mix, and then I will solo up the vocal and you can hear the vocal by itself, and then we'll dissect what we're doing with this compressor here. So here's the finished vocal inside the mix.
Running and running, I've been chasing her around, but I can't pin this little dragon down. She gives me half of a sign, she wants me in her life, but I can't help thinking that I'm wasting her time. I'll never be the man she needs, so I'll save my calls and be a memory. Running and running, I've been chasing her around, but I can't pin this little dragon down. She gives me half of a sign, she wants me in her life, but I can't help thinking that I'm wasting her time. I'll never be the man she needs, so I'll say my...
You can hear how our vocal sounds, you can hear the effect we're achieving with this compressor. Now let me show you what we're using and how it's working here. My compressor of choice, my secret weapon of sorts here, is the FET Comp Inside of Studio One, or their 1176 style emulation. Now I pretty much never change the attack, release, or ratio settings on this compressor. This is usually how I pull it in and how I use it on a vocal. The only things I change are the input and the output controls to get the amount of compression that I want on the vocal. Let me show you how much compression we're doing here, and then I'll do a bypass on it so you can hear the before and the after effect of this compressor.
Running and running, I've been chasing her around, but I can't pin this little dragon down. She gives me half of a sign, she wants me in her life, but I can't help thinking that I'm wasting her time. I'll never be the man she needs, so I'll save my calls and be a memory. Running and running, I've been chasing her around, but
So we're doing about 7 to 10 dB of compression here with this unit, but you can hear the energy and the character and the vibe we get from pushing that hard into this compressor. So our attack here is set at about 0.55 milliseconds. I can't really see it. There's a glare from the top light. And then our release is all the way up at 50 milliseconds. Our ratio is at 4:1 because we don't want to go too aggressive and start limiting our vocal. We just want a nice level of compression to put on top of this vocal, and we want to be able to push hard enough into it to get that vibe and character out of this plugin or this type of unit. So any type of 1176 style emulation. One more time, we're going to start with out, and then I'm going to click it back on. Listen to what we're going to get from this, okay? We get a little bit of gain, because I haven't quite dialed in our input and output matching, so we get a little bit of gain from it, but listen to how the top end on our vocal changes, and listen to how the low-mid energy on our vocal changes.
running and running, I've been chasing her around, but I can't pin this little dragon down. She gives me half of a sign, she wants me in her life, but I can't help thinking that I'm wasting her time. I'll never be the man she needs, so I'll save my calls and be a memory. Running and running, I've been chasing her around.
With the compressor in, we get so much more power from our low-mid area. So our 200, our 300 hertz area, or anywhere below, right, our 100, 150 hertz area, we get so much more of that low-mid power. And then up top, this amount of compression holds our high boosts in place, so we get a nice level of crispness and a nice level of sheen and character on top of our vocal. It also helps to emphasize the personality of our singer. So when they're singing, when they're pushing, they're giving it their energy and all their passion. Pushing this hard into a compressor helps to emphasize that and bring out their emotion and bring out their personality. So it sounds a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? It sounds a little bit more real when we put the compressor in, right? You can feel their personality, you can feel their character, and you can feel their emotion more with the compressor in. With it off, it sounds like more like a dry, drab, just a vocal recording, right? Just a dull vocal recording. We have our EQ, we have our de-esser in, but when we kick that compressor in, it really brings our vocal to life. It makes it sound real, it makes it sound emotive, and it fits it inside of the track. So let's take a listen inside the track here. A before, and then I'll kick our compressor in, listen to how our vocal comes to life, because this unit breathes that life into it. Gives it the personality and vibe that we get from a vintage style unit like this, but it also emphasizes the emotion and the character of our vocalist, while again holding our vocal in place, because we're doing that 10 dB of compression, right? So it keeps our vocal even, it keeps it out front, but it emphasizes our character and vibe of our performer here. So take a listen before and after.
Running and running, I've been chasing her around, but I can't pin this little dragon down. She gives me half of a sign, she wants me in her life, but I can't help thinking that I'm wasting her time. I'll never be the man she needs, so I'll say my calls and be a memory. Yeah, yeah. Running and running, I've been chasing her around, but I can't pin this little dragon down. She gives me half of a.
If we go back and look at our EQ here, going into this compressor, so we're cutting the low mids here to make sure the vocal's not too muddy or heavy, and we're cutting a little bit of the top end here to make sure it's not too airy or too shimmery inside the track. But when we kick this compressor in, it helps to hold our high end and our low end in place. We get a little bit more low beef from this amount of compression and from pushing into this style of unit, and we also hold our top end in place. So it really solidifies the crispness and the shine that we want from this type of vocal in this type of track. To illustrate the effect we're getting from this compressor and why it's my secret weapon, I want to pull in the stock compressor here inside of Studio One and do the same kind of compression, but without the vintage vibe, without the character that compressor imparts on our vocal. So I'm going to solo up our vocal here, and we'll do the same kind of 7 to 10 dB of compression, but with the stock compressor here. We'll go 4 to 1, so our same kind of ratio, and we'll do a fast attack, and we'll do the same kind of release, so 40-50 milliseconds here.
Running and running, I've been chasing her around, but I can't pin this little dragon down. She gives me half of a sign, she wants me in her life, but I can't help thinking that I'm wasting her time. I'll never be the man she needs, so I'll say my calls and be a memory. Yeah, yeah. Running and running, I've been chasing her around, but I can't pin this little dragon. Running and running, I've been running and running, I've been chasing her around, but I can't pin this little. Running and running, I've been chasing her around, but I. Running and running, I've been chasing her around, but I can't pin this little dragon down. Running and running, running and running, I've been chasing her around, but I can't pin this little dragon down. She gives me half of a sign, she wants me in her life, but I can't help thinking that I'm wasting her time. I'll never be the man she needs, so I'll say my calls and be a memory. Yeah, yeah. Running and running.
So I got the stock compressor here sitting at about the same level of compression, and then I took a moment there to make sure our gain level was about the same, so we aren't focusing on the level of gain between the two compressors, but more on the character and the vibe they impart on our vocal. We're going to start with the stock compressor here. We'll take a pass, and then we're going to listen to the 1176 style compressor here. Now I want you to focus on what we're getting out of each compressor. So how does the vocal tone change? How even does the vocal stay? We're doing about the same amount of compression on each, so how are they handling the input from the vocal at each level of compression? And then listen to our frequencies that we talked about, right? How does it control the top end, and how does it affect the low end? So here's our stock compressor.
Running been chasing her around, but I can't pin this little dragon down. She gives me half of a sign, she wants me in her life, but I can't help thinking that I'm wasting her time. I'll never be the man she needs, so I'll say my calls and be a memory. Yeah, yeah. Running and running.
Now let's take a listen to our 1176 style compressor.
Running and running, I've been chasing her around, but I can't pin this little dragon down. She gives me half of a sign, she wants me in her life, but I can't help thinking that I'm wasting her time. I'll never be the man she needs, so I'll say my calls and be a memory. Yeah, yeah. Running and running, I've been chasing her around, but I
To me, that is night and day. The 1176 style compressor, or the FET comp inside of Studio One, holds the vocal in place a lot better than the stock compressor. And it also helps out the tone of the vocal so much more to me. So the stock style compressor to me didn't control the high end as well as the 1176 style compressor did. When I had the stock compressor in, the vocal still felt a little bit too crisp and a little bit too airy or shimmery up top for me. It didn't hold that area in place as well as the 1176 style compressor did. And then in terms of the low end, we got a little bit more beef from this compressor. That's just the nature of doing this much compression on a vocal. You're going to get a little bit more of the low mid area out, but it didn't seem as solid as it was when we were using the 1176 or the FET comp style compressor. And then in terms of evenness, I really do think the 1176 or the FET comp held the vocal in place a lot better than the stock compressor did. This still felt a little bit too dynamic to me. I could still feel the vocal moving a little bit too much for my liking. And don't get me wrong, you want your vocal to have a little bit of movement, a little bit of dynamics to it. You don't want it to feel, really straight all the way across the board unless you have a really aggressive mix. So I want a little bit of dynamics from the vocal, but I want it to feel more real rather than it's like a recording still fighting to compete with a finished mix. And that's kind of what I felt when I was using the stock compressor. It still felt like the vocal was fighting to compete with the mix. Here on the 1176 style compressor, the vocal felt even, it felt out front, and it felt like it could compete with the mix while still having some movement and dynamic to it. So one more time. And let me play you a before and after with this 1176 or the FET comp inside of Studio One. I'll play you the vocal by itself one more time, and we'll kick it back into the mix and do a final before and after here. So here's by itself.
Running and running, I've been chasing her around, but I can't pin this little dragon down. She gives me half of a sign, she wants me in her life, but I can't help thinking that I'm wasting her time. I'll never be the man she needs, so I'll say my calls and be a memory. Yeah, yeah. Running and running, I've been chasing her around, but I can't pin this little dragon down. She gives me half of a sign, she wants me in her life, but I can't help thinking that I'm wasting her time. I'll never be the man she needs, so I'll say my calls and be a memory. Yeah, yeah. Running and running, I've been chasing her around.
You can hear the power, you can hear the energy, and you can hear the tone that we're getting from this unit. It gives us a little bit more of that crispness up on top, or rather controls that crispness and that airiness, that top end area, a lot better than a stock compressor will do, because we get that vintage vibe, and it gives us the low end heat that we need on our vocal while holding it in place and doing the job of a normal stock compressor, right? It keeps our vocal even and it keeps it up front. I hope that was helpful for you. Like I said at the beginning of the video, if you are ready to level up your vocal mixes and your EQ skills, then I have just the tool for you. It's my ultimate guide to vocal EQ, and it is completely free. You can download it below and start creating more professional mixes in less time. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.